This video is being recorded during the WGA and SAG strike. I'm in support of all writers and actors asking for fair pay. These TV shows would not be possible without their hard work. A way to donate to their cause is in the description below. Hello everyone, welcome back to Flying Solo with Kat, and I'm so excited. I say that every episode, but it is the last episode that I will be talking about Ahsoka, which for some of you might be disappointed, but for most of you, you will be overjoyed. So, yeah, it was the finale, which feels really weird. It doesn't feel like it was the finale, which is good and bad. And I'll get into that in a bit. The overall feeling of the finale was not that great. I think there are a lot of problems with it, which I will, of course, go in with the video, but it wasn't bad in any means. It was not bad at all. I think there's a lot that they're leading up towards, and I think when we see all of that and we look back, we're gonna like how Ahsoka ended and feel that it was good. So only time will tell to see how we feel. But yeah, so I'm gonna go into it and then I'm gonna read some tweets and RIP. This is gonna be the last Ahsoka episode. I won't be doing an overall thoughts of the show because I feel like if you followed along with my reviews of each episode, I feel like you guys have a pretty good understanding of where I'm at with Ahsoka, and I'll even kind of dive into it at the end of this review, but I don't need to do a whole separate video. I really want to branch out and do other stuff. I love Ahsoka, and I love talking about Ahsoka, but doing 8 episodes of the same show every week, I'm ready to move out. Actually, I was going to say this at the end of the video, but I'm too excited. For many of you who don't stay towards the end of the video, next week I will be talking about the Star Wars Hyperspace Stories number 8. I finally got my issue of it, and oh my gosh, it's good. It's really, really good, and I'm going to be talking about it, going over some stuff, talking about some Kylux. So if you guys are interested in that, please turn on notifications, subscribe if you haven't, and that will be next Sunday. And I'm very, very excited, and I think that's going to be a really, really good video. So stay tuned for that. But anyway, let's get back to Ahsoka. So first, I do want to start off with Thrawn. And Thrawn is very scared of Ahsoka after learning that Anakin Skywalker is her master. And I feel like that's pretty valid. Of course, in the Thrawn books, we had him, talking with General Skywalker and back before the Empire with the Republic, and I feel like that's really interesting, and there's definitely history there, and I'm interested to see if that's going to come to light or not if Luke meets up with Thrawn, if that happens. I'm not saying it will. If that happens, it'd be very interesting to see how Thrawn reacts to the Ghost Crew, but also the continuations of the Skywalkers, because if Thrawn was scared of Ahsoka, who trained under Anakin Skywalker, he should be way more terrified of Anakin Skywalker's children, Leia Organa, and of course Luke Skywalker, and even his great-grandchild, Ben Solo. So I feel like he has a lot more issues to deal with than the Ghost Crew and Ahsoka, but only time will tell to see if Thrawn will actually meet them, what will happen with that. There's a lot of things that I don't quite understand how Thrawn will fit into, what will happen with Snoke, what will happen with the First Order. Does Pellaeon actually know that Thrawn was going to return? Or did Pellaeon basically just make that up to buy him more time from Brendol and a couple of the other High Council members? And Moff Gideon's dead, so how will that fit in with Thrawn and Morgan Elizabeth? There's a lot of things that need connecting, so I'm not going to try to waste my breath theorizing. I feel like everyone is doing that, and I, of course, don't want to get disappointed or even overthink it. So I'm kind of just letting it be for now. But with new comic issues or even Tales of the Jedi Season 2 coming out, we'll definitely be seeing a bit more of what's to come, and I'm very, very excited. Morgan Elizabeth gets the Sword of Talzin by the mothers, and that was really cool to see that in live action. I think it looks way cooler in Clone Wars. I think just because there's so much you can do with animation and not much you can do with live action. Live action, it was kind of like, okay, it's like a sword. But in Clone Wars, I remember it was like green, engulfed in green fire, and of course it could block lightsabers, and that's what it did in this show. But it just didn't really strike fear, and for people who had never seen Clone Wars, I feel like it didn't do much in that department either. So that was a bit unfortunate, but it was still really cool to see the mothers, of course, give power to the troopers at that time. We didn't know what it was, but of course, I already knew it was going to be zombie stormtroopers. That was kind of a given. I said that last week, and people were calling all of us crazy. And no, it was zombie stormtroopers, and I was very happy to see that. How it was executed, I'll talk about it now. I think that it wasn't scary enough. I think they definitely kept their PG rating. Granted, people will say, well, Clone Wars just went so, dark and gory. And it's like, okay, that's only for a couple episodes. But even then, it really wasn't crazy. I was hoping they were going to do so much more with live action and with some of the stuff that with the graphics and everything. And it just felt I wasn't scared of the zombie stormtroopers, which was truly unfortunate. And I really wanted to feel the fear and feel the dark magic flowing through them and kind of how the book. I didn't read the book, which was the Zombie Stormtroopers in the Legends novelization, but I wanted it to be kind of like that, and unfortunately, I just didn't really feel fear for them or even care about the people behind the mask. And there's only so much they can do with those faceless stormtroopers to turn them into zombies and make them actually, terrible foes for Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine. And unfortunately, I just really didn't feel that. So that was a bit disappointing, but they still looked amazing, and I love the concept either way. So I think as a concept and how it was executed are two little different things, but overall, I didn't mind it at all. Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra are traveling super slow to the castle. I This episode felt very, very slow. Like like Dave was trying to hold out time and trying to the characters were talking really slow, and it didn't feel the urgency that it needed. Thrawn is going to go into the main galaxy and wreak havoc and bring the Empire back, and our characters are leisurely taking a stroll and not really going as fast as they should be. And it's not even like the ship is damaged yet at that time. They're just working with the creatures there, which is fine, but it just felt like you should be a little bit more proactive and make your way towards there. And that was the whole thing of they missed the ship going and they were there right as it was leaving. It just felt like they were stretching out so much time and then that to us as an audience really showed that, oh, well, he's going to leave. They're not going to make it. There's, no point in really continuing the story because we know how it's going to, honestly, know how it's going to end. There was one twist that I didn't think was going to happen, but other than that, everything else was pretty straightforward. The Kanan Jarrus mention was great. Ezra actually building a new lightsaber was very interesting as well. And I loved how this even more encompasses the fact that Ezra gave Sabine his lightsaber, and that's Sabine's lightsaber now, and she's done modifications to it. And I think that's the true reason why Ezra didn't take it. He realized that no, that's actually Sabine's lightsaber. I will use the Force as my ally in a different way, and then I'll in turn build a new lightsaber with, of course, at the time he didn't know, but he did use one of the secondary piece to Kanan Jarrus lightsaber, Caleb. And I thought that was really special. And I think special for both of them. So really, really cool and really special story. And Hu Yang actually, telling or teaching Caleb how to build his lightsaber and having that transfer on. Ezra and Sabine meeting him and everything was really, really interesting. Sabine and Ahsoka talking outside. I thought there was going to be a big blowout fight. I've been saying this for the last couple episodes, and I was really, really scared about it. And I was so happy that they did not do that. We didn't need more added drama to it or anything. Ahsoka saying that she knew, and Sabine saying, I'm sorry. And Ahsoka flat out saying, I know, but we're here now, and, we're going to stick with it. And Ahsoka, I think that, you know, thing in the world between worlds. That was a huge revelation for her, and she really is changed. She really does look at the world or the galaxy a bit differently when she said that I'm going to stick by you. Even when no one understood me, my master always stood by me. He didn't need to always check or doubted me. He always stood by me, even when I turned out to be wrong. And Ahsoka realizing that and realizing that's what Sabine needs. She needs someone that will trust in her. And Sabine, you can even see her facial expression. She's surprised. She doesn't realize why Ahsoka would even do that for her. And for me, that just encompassed their whole relationship and why it wasn't working out. And now I'm very, very excited to see where their master and apprentice relationship will go. And I'm actually very, very hyped for their story and everything with that. And just Ahsoka in general, she's back. I love how she's older and she's still a bit more subdued, but she has that sass and quirkiness, but also the smarts that young Ahsoka had at her prime. And I feel like that went away for a bit because she was so kind of held off on the Force and didn't accept the reality, and she was living in a fantasy. And I found that really, really, really important for her character, for Sabine's character, and really, really, really special. The ship gets shot down, which I feel like is a useless point because they were going super slow anyway. They wouldn't have made it in time as it was. But the ship gets shot down, so that it seems like it's gonna put them back, but then they have the doggos that are, the animals. I don't even remember what they're called, but Ahsoka says we could ride on those. So it just felt a little unnecessary. Like, I think it just was there because Dave probably thought, well, technically they could just fly up to the castle and they wouldn't have to go through all those stormtroopers, and then that would just waste less time. So then we'd actually have to have more story to tell. So I feel like that was a useless plot point. Every plot point in this episode does kind of feel, or at least the like 1/3 of it feels like it is taking its time and going super, super slow, which is fine. But when you're on the final episode of the season, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. You have to give me something a bit more substance. I understand that there definitely will be a season 2, but I need something that's gonna, work a bit more for a finale. And I think that's why a lot of people were disappointed. They make their way to the castle. They get in, and there are troopers. And of course, they fight the troopers. I'm going to talk about the choreography for a bit. I've watched this episode twice. The first time, I actually did not like the episode as a whole, besides the last 2 minutes. On my second watch, I actually liked a lot more parts of it. So I do recommend kind of watch the Ahsoka series back one more time again after you finish the series or finish the season, and I can almost guarantee that you will find something that you didn't really like before and you've now accepted it. And I feel like that's for me too. I feel like I will find that in this. But with the choreography and with the fighting, both times it did not look that great. There were just a lot of things going on with the lightsabers. They didn't seem to want to kill the troopers, and it was taking very, very slow, and they just weren't really doing much, and they were all standing there, and it felt like very much like a mock pose, which is fine in certain circumstances, but in this it just felt blocky and kind of dumb. And people were saying, oh, well, this is just Disney, Disney lightsaber fighting. No one wants to get hurt or whatever. I'm sorry. Have you seen the sequel trilogy? I love all of the fight scenes in the sequel trilogy. And yes, you can clip me on that. I love the Force Awakens Forest Starkiller Base fight scene against Finn, Rey, and Kylo. Literally one of the best. I love the Last Jedi throne room scene. I haven't said it enough, and I feel really, really bad, but I actually really like it. I know there's that group of people that just despise Last Jedi and will find everything wrong with that fight scene. But if you compare it to the Ahsoka fight scenes, besides Ahsoka and Morgan, that last fight scene in this finale, everything else, if you compare that to the throne room scene, I'm sorry, the throne room scene just completely takes it over and does so much better. The Rise of Skywalker fight scenes are very, very good. Besides the Knights of Ren, I'll talk about that in a later video. Didn't like that choreography at all. But other than that, the one on Keplar and Exegol, the last battle, I thought was great. So comparing this fight scene to the sequel trilogy fight scene, I think is just completely crazy, and you need to go see those movies again because there is definitely a difference in quality and just overall it just feels really, really blocky. When Ahsoka fights Morgan up at the top and all the troopers finally get up there, you know what? You go back and look what the troopers are doing when it pans back to Sabine and Ezra and then back to Ahsoka and Morgan. They're just standing there. They are literally just watching Ahsoka and Morgan fight it out. And I don't know if that was a creative choice or just kind of a way to save budget. To me, it felt like kind of a way to save budget. I was like, no, like hurt Ahsoka. Like I needed some substance in this episode, and I feel like I didn't get that, which just really sucks. I really wanted something to where someone was, something was going to happen that I wasn't expecting, and it just didn't. Sabine uses the Force to finally get her lightsaber. I'm very yay on this, but also a little nay on this. Yay, and yes, I mean, that was like my big moment where I wanted her to use the Force in the finale after all of this time. Now, of course, I'll get into people, saying that she had no training or whatever, but her using the Force is definitely a yay. Now, it's not just Dave Filoni. I feel bad for just calling out Dave Filoni, but Star Wars as a whole, creators seem to only want to focus on characters that have the Force, and that's why Andor is so special, and I do have to give it credit for that. Give it where credit is due, of course, because it's never been talked about before, but Andor focuses nothing on the Force. Maybe it's mentioned once, and even then it's a fleeting comment. It's not the main focus, and our main character does not have the Force. And a lot of people were saying, I kind of miss the Sabine that had the spray paint and was a Mandalorian and had a rough exterior. And I still feel like some of those aspects are there, but it's definitely more on the Jedi side and her wanting to train to be a Jedi. And I've never really truly connected with Sabine's character. I've always been okay with her, but I connected more with Callus and Hera and Kanan personally. But for me, I do understand why people are a little just confused and not really keen on the whole Force thing. And I do have to agree with them. I think that I would have loved if she would have kept the Mandalorian and she would have just worked together with Ahsoka. But of course, and they got to move the plot somewhere. So I'm not too mad about it, but I do see both points. And Sabine, of course, I'll say again, uses the Force to send Ezra home. And Sabine goes back and helps Ahsoka. And then, of course, she fights the troopers that are just standing there watching them. And I do like that Sabine went back for Ahsoka. I found that was really, really special and reiterated what Ahsoka said, that she would always stand by Sabine. And Sabine finally needed to hear those words. And once Ahsoka said that, Sabine was like, I'll stand by you as well. You are my master. I'm your apprentice. We're going to do this together. And I found that very, very special. And the fact that she stayed back, even though her whole mission was to send Ezra home, not to get home herself, and that she made a mistake. And I do feel like that was very prevalent in this episode. But even at the end, that when Ahsoka says, "Why didn't you go?" and Sabine says, I completed my mission. I sent Ezra home. And I do feel like that was really well done. And that was my twist, is that Sabine actually didn't make it home with Ezra. I did think Ahsoka was probably going to stay back because Baylan and Shin were staying back and all of that. But the fact that Sabine stayed back and Ezra made it home, I found that very interesting. And I really, really, really liked that. So that was great. Ezra, of course, has that grand entrance into the Rebel ship on the not Star Cruiser, on the Imperial ship. I don't remember what they're called. Land. I don't know. You know what ship I'm talking about, though. and he exits out in the stormtrooper outfit, and of course everyone has his guns on him, and he's just so nonchalant. And then Chopper rolls over to him and kind of waits a second, and then Ezra puts his hand down, and Chopper immediately recognizes him, and then you can see Hera and the recollection in her eyes, and to me that was really special. The fact that we did not see them hug, though, is a bit of a crime. I don't know why we couldn't have held that shot a bit more. I don't know. I just didn't. I feel like there was a lot more that they needed to talk about and actually have dialogue together. And I felt like that was a huge missed opportunity, and that's not the type of cliffhanger that I feel like was warranted for this episode. We haven't seen Ezra in 30 years or whatever. That's probably not the exact time, but in a long time. And I feel like to have that paid off, in that instance, you do need dialogue with Hera and with Ezra, or even them meeting in an embrace. And that was, of course, not shown. So I found that a little weird. The final. Of course, I do want to give a shout out to Ray Stevenson. You will be missed. You are loved. Baylan Skoll became a fan favorite, no matter if you were still here or, if you're in a galaxy far, far away. Baylan Skoll will always be probably one of the top favorite characters in these TV shows. Really cool, same as Shin. But I just want to give a, shout out to Ray Stevenson. He was gone way too soon, and the character that a presence that he had, on set, of course, but even in the show as Baylan Skoll was just absolutely amazing and super well done. So shout out to you, Ray. You're amazing, and we all love you, and we love your character, and we're excited to see where he goes, and we will always remember you as our Baylan Skoll. So I just wanted to say that. And of course, he is searching for the Mortis gods. We had that, and we saw him standing on the hand of the father, and then next to him was the son, and on the other side of him was the daughter, but her head was broken off. And a lot of people speculate it could be Baylan that cut her head off, or it was something with the Force. Very, very excited. I'll get to more about that, because I have a tweet on it. But very, very interesting, and I love that finale. The fact that he didn't say anything, but he had so much of that presence, and you could feel his emotion. For me, that was special. That's what got me emotional. Seeing him there for the last time was really nice. Shin just looks like she is having the worst day of her life. The music in this finale, by the way, was amazing, but specifically the last 2 minutes is maybe some of the best score I've heard in Star Wars in a bit. And it's, now when I say a bit, literally like Andor, but it was really, really, really good. How Shin just raises her lightsaber to the nomads, and no dialogue as well. Very, very silent. And I found that really, really powerful for both of them and really important. And we know that Shin and Sabine are going to meet up again, and it's going to be very, very interesting. The Sabine and Ahsoka final was good. They were accepting that they were here for a long time. The fact that Ahsoka saw, of course, the daughter, the owl, and Morai, was her sign that they needed to be here. When, Sabine says, well, what's our plan? And Ahsoka says, well, we finished our plan. Ezra got home. He's where he needs to be, and we are where we need to be. And once she saw Morai, she knew this is where her destiny, she was always going to end up here no matter what. And I found that very, very special. And that made me excited for season 2, and made me excited for what new story they're going to tell with Ahsoka and Sabine, and what are each of them going to learn about the Mortis gods, and and everything. If you remember from the Clone Wars and those Mortis God trials to, you know, find Anakin, and that was the Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka, that was very, very interesting. And that was very early concept of what Dave and even what George Lucas had in mind. And the fact that that's being developed on now, it is very, very exciting. And I think a lot of people are going to be excited because it's going to be new and because it's going to be something different that we really haven't seen in Star Wars besides those 3 episodes of the Mortis God special. Ahsoka looking off into the starlight and with Sabine saying, "Oh, I thought I saw, shadows in the starlight." And Ahsoka looks back again and she smiles and then she walks back and then we see, of course, Anakin at the end. And the music is already going so hard and I'm like trying not to get emotional. And we just see him standing there and he's smiling because he knows that Ahsoka's found her purpose and she's where she needs to be. And for me, that's what this show is about. It wasn't about all the other stuff. It wasn't about, all that filler or every little detail not, missing and the troopers standing on the side and no stakes at all in this episode. That's what we needed. And that's what this was about, was Ahsoka finding herself. And to me, that is way more important than, characters showing up or, having certain plot events, extend for a period of time. For me, that's the most important thing. But overall, very good episode. I'm not mad at all. I think I don't know, people just hate Star Wars if it's Star Wars, even though they claim, oh, well, we love the prequels, we love OT. It's like, okay, but like that's great. And I'm glad you try some of the new stuff, but don't get mad when you don't like it. Like, I'm sorry. I didn't really care for this episode. I'm going to flat out say that. But I found things that I enjoy about it. And I'll tell you guys this every single time. In any fandom, not even just Star Wars, in any fandom, you cannot like something. You cannot like a property or you cannot like a certain episode or you know what I mean. But for me, for mental stability, it is really healthy to look at it as a whole and say, okay, I'm not really vibing with that, but actually I did like how I did this and that, and try to find the positivity. Now, if you can't, then you can't. But I promise you, if you really, instead of thinking all the negative stuff that you would just absolutely hate about it and you just hate everything, take a step back and just watch it with a blank mind. And I promise you, you will find at least one thing that you enjoy about it, even if it's something simple, even if it's something as simple as the clothing or the, actors. That is still something. And for me, that's what being a Star Wars fan is all about. That's what being in this type of fandom is all about, is not liking necessarily everything, but finding something that you enjoy, finding something that inspires you. So I'm going to get off of that rant and I'm going to read some awesome tweets. So let's get into it.
Hey guys, you could probably hear me a lot better now. I just realized that I was recording on the wrong microphone, but I think I'm going to keep in that last part because everything I said was completely true and I don't think I can execute it as well a second time. But it is still legible. If you have any issues with it, I really do apologize. Doing podcasting is so hard. I don't know if any of you are podcasters as well or trying to make content, but I just came back from a 3-day, super busy weekend and I went traveling and I'm recording this at like 7 o'clock at night. So I'm trying to get this out before, today. So please bear with me. Stuff happens, but hopefully you can hear all of my stuff. Anyway, let's get into the tweets. At Concho Bar 2003 says, okay, overall opinion. held up by brilliant elements like the casting and music. I love the general story beats and the answers for questions we've had, and there were plenty of pinch me moments as a fan. I didn't always feel the emotional heart beating, and it could have benefited from a writer's room. Dave's writing was a less naturalistic than previous work. There are strokes of character arcs, but they're covered quite sparsely. And that said, most of Ahsoka lands for me, and I'm really glad we finally got the story continued in a satisfying way. I completely agree. Everything that's said there, I think there were a couple problems with it. I think just overall pacing was a big struggle, but at the heart of it, it was great. I do think it does elevate itself a bit with nostalgia. I think everyone kind of freaked out about the live action Clone Wars episode, as they should. I was freaking out as well. But when you look at the rest of the episodes, I do feel like that one pales in comparison. I think for me, it's the same as the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, that the final episode just completely outshines the rest of the episodes in that series. At least for me, when I go back and watch Obi-Wan Kenobi, I only watch the finale. I don't go through the rest of the series for me. And for this Ahsoka, I will probably only watch episode 5 and not go into, the other episodes. Now, of course, that's just my opinion, and of course they said it perfectly, so thank you so much. At ATG Cast says thoughts #Mortis, and it is a picture of course, the Mortis statues that Baylan was standing on, and he points to the sun, and on the sun he has a big scar down the side of his eye on the left side, which is, funny enough, the same side that Kylo Ren has it on. Or it's the right. I don't know. It's in the same positioning, though. I can't do perspective. That's interesting. That is an interesting theory. And I said it in the last video. I think Ben Solo is definitely going to be part of that. Do I think Rey is going to be part of that as well? No, I don't think so. But how does that even go into it? Who's the father then? And who's all of that? So it'd be interesting to see. With Baylan, another tweet that I unfortunately lost was that he was looking out to the mountains and there was a beam of light, which is the same light that Anakin saw in the 3-part special that he was drawn to. This planet is not 100%, but I'm 90% sure that this planet, Peridia, is the same planet that Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Anakin ended up on in a different galaxy. Now, I don't know how that happened, and that's a very, skewed theory. But for me, that kind of, feels like where it's going. And, I'd be interested to see what's happening with that. I don't know. We'll see. At Ra Fe Tana says, the fact that these are the exact same shots must mean that the father's force is once again calling for his replacement. And of course, as I talked about, it's literally the same shot of Baylan and Anakin looking in the same place, which is absolutely amazing. And I do think Dave is going somewhere with that. At HK47 Actual says, statement, from the beginning of the show, I wondered how this crowd would react. Watching someone who struggled more, trained longer, and otherwise combated some of the most common complaints about Rey, finally breaking through. And yep, they fall back on Old Faithful. Pathetic. And of course, it is a retweet of someone saying, self-taught, like all Disney Star Wars Mary Sues are, because Sabine was officially changed to Jedi on the Star Wars website, which I think is very cool. And everyone, every rage bait man on the app went at it and said, oh my gosh, another female Mary Sue. How dare they turn another female into a Jedi? There are so many females in Star Wars that what are they doing with the men? I can't believe that there's no male characters that may or not be the chosen one and has a whole series, or actually a whole saga wrapped around his family that mainly focus on male characters. Just saying. So that was really interesting to me because Sabine had actual training go into the episode, and that was the whole point. And yet people will still just completely throw that out the window and just say, oh, well, it's a female, so ew, I don't want to watch it. It was a blue check, though, so I don't take what they say, honestly, with a grain of salt. They're just trying to get clicks, and thankfully this was screenshotted. Don't retweet the blue checks. Don't do it. Just don't. It's rage bait. Don't do it. Screenshot it, and then say your statement. Way better for me. That Alan Diaz says, I think a lot of people are having a hard time dealing with the fact that the finale was a TV season finale in every way, and not the conclusion of an 8-part film. It's a final that reminds us what medium this is. Some shows try to be decompressed films, but some remain TV. I think it's compared to the Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Ahsoka, right? With Obi-Wan, it was supposed to be a movie. That was supposed to be the whole point. But with Ahsoka, they're definitely continuing it with the season 2. So for me, I do think that's completely valid. For me being a little disappointed that they didn't have, time to develop into certain characters, I don't know what's next. And that's also why I said at the beginning of the video I wasn't going to theorize a lot of things. So, which is a bit unfortunate, but, it is what it is. Well, we'll see what it is. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for the tweets. Again, I do apologize that the audio for this video is really bad. I'm not really getting great views on the Ahsoka episodes anyway. If anyone stayed this long, thank you. You're amazing. Love you. But yeah, definitely we will be going back to some of my more Kylix videos. I'm hoping to do character study videos. Get into it. I'm still doing writing and art, so I'm getting a little, split up right now, but I enjoy this podcast, and I love doing it. I also want to talk about the movies, the other TV shows, because there's a lot to talk about, so very exciting. So again, apologize for the audio, but thank you all for listening, and I will see you in the next one.